Hello, everybody. My name is Jake, and I'm an alcoholic. Very happy to be here with you all, so thanks for having me. And welcome to the newcomers. I remember what it's like to be new in these meetings, and I wasn't a very happy camper when I got here, and I didn't want to be here. I didn't know if I was an alcoholic or not. I didn't really care. But I knew that I didn't want this. And I wasn't here looking for a solution or looking for God, and I didn't want to stop drinking. I was here because I'd gotten in some trouble. And I'm just grateful that there was a seed planted at that time. And I don't know who planted it or what they said. But I do know that people appeared to be happy here, which I remembered that part. And there was something about the energy from the people in these rooms that stayed with me, even though I didn't stay. And so I just want to thank the committee for having me come out, and Kathy and Cheryl, I appreciate you opening the meeting and your share. I already heard some great things. The part about not fitting in, feeling awkward, and never really knowing who my tribe was, or, I was just always trying to be somebody I wasn't. And then being really uncomfortable in my own skin and not knowing what the problem was. That's a reoccurring theme I hear in meetings, and I really understand that. I feel it when people say it, because sometimes I still feel that way. But one of the refreshing things for me was I'd never been to a place where people actually discussed that kind of thing. Like, I don't remember people saying I feel awkward or uncomfortable in my own skin. It was really new to me. So what it was like for me early on, I grew up in a loving home. There was a lot of drinking and partying going on. It was the kind of home where, nobody said anything if the kids were sipping beer and just kind of carrying on, and boys will be boys type of thing. Early in my life, I had a lot of fun drinking. There weren't many consequences. I just loved being out and around people and just acting crazy and doing crazy stuff. I really embraced the feeling of getting out of feeling awkward and uncomfortable and not being able to socialize when I would drink. I just remember the feeling I would get where all of a sudden everything was okay for a minute. And I remember the first time I blacked out and really made a fool of myself and ended up naked and humiliated. And I woke up and I loved it. There was something about just the way that a normal person might not enjoy that, right? Being humiliated like that. But there was something about blacking out and being so out of control that just left me wanting more. And so that was my journey, and as things went on, I drank more and more, and I started to experience some consequences, just kind of minor stuff, getting thrown in the drunk tank and some car accidents and just, things that maybe a normal person might say, hey, this is getting a little out of hand. They might think, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't drive anymore, or maybe, I should watch my consumption levels, and those things never really crossed my mind. I was introduced to this program. The first meeting I attended was in 1991. And again, it wasn't that I showed up there happy to get sober. I was in trouble, and they made me go to AA. And so I got sober in 2003. And so 12 years after being introduced to this solution and this way of living, I insisted on going back out and learning the hard way. Even though I heard people in meetings saying that it gets worse, I didn't believe them. I thought maybe for you. And that's kind of a reoccurring theme in my life as well. You don't know me. You don't understand me. I don't even like you. And so why am I going to listen to you? You know, I'm going to find my own way. And if it does get worse, so be it. So I went back, and the reason I really like to touch on this part is because I never got any real relief and really felt free from my addiction and my disease until I grasped this program, like the big book says, with the desperation of a drowning man. And I worked the steps with a sponsor, got a home group, got a service commitment. All of the things that I heard in meetings that I was never willing to do. I never really embraced this program and wanted to stay until I got the relief that I saw other people were getting. You know, I believed you that you didn't drink anymore and that you felt better. I just didn't really think that was going to happen for me. And I was complaining about the results I got from the work I had never done. And I mean, really, that's what it was. And, you know, to make a really long, painful story short, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And it wasn't just being in jail and having to go to rehab and just, it was more of the feelings and the disappointment in myself. And I mean, I remember not even really being able to look at myself in the mirror. I couldn't believe it'd gotten so bad. I never set out for it to be so bad. Like, I always felt like I was a nice guy, fun-loving guy who just wanted to go out and party and go to concerts and chase girls and just do the things that a lot of young men were doing. And then all of a sudden, I was like spun way out of control. And, you know, I didn't really understand what it means for me to be an alcoholic. Like, I remember raising my hand and saying, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. But I didn't really understand what that meant. Like, I thought, yeah, my folks drink, my dad's in AA, so he's an alcoholic, therefore I am. But I didn't understand what it means to be powerless over this. Like, I remember looking at the first step and being like, unmanageable, obviously. Absolutely, my life is unmanageable. You know, I crashed and burned in Vegas and had nowhere to go, nowhere to live, and was running from the law, and no job, no money. It was clear to me that my life was out of control. But the powerless part, it just kind of went over my head. Like, I didn't understand what that meant. And so what I've come to realize and learn about what it means for me to be powerless is, if it's up to me, like up to my own best thinking and my own plan, like, I'm going to drink. I'm going to get drunk, and it's going to get worse. And the reason I know that is because I tried everything I could think of other than this simple solution to stay sober. And, you know, in the beginning, when I got here, I didn't want to stay sober. And then I was kind of like, well, yeah, maybe I'll just dry out for a minute and get my act together. But there's no way I could stay sober forever. I don't want to. That doesn't sound like fun. And, time went on and the consequences started to get much, much worse. And then, finally, the day came. And I wanted to stop. Like I was done. And I felt it, like, in my soul. I hated alcohol. I hated my life. I hated me. Everything that I'd done. Everything that I stood for. I was desperate. And for me, I really... Oh, by the way, when I'm feeling this way, that I'm done, and I mean it, and it's not for anyone else, it's for me, guess what I was doing? I was drinking. So, that was really an experience that I needed to have. And what it boiled down to is, I just had to want to die. And once I got there, I knew that AA was here. And I'd reached out to a guy I knew I'd been in rehab with. He stayed sober, I didn't. And I just went to him and said, Rob, I'm dying. I need help. And he said, welcome home, brother. I'm glad you're here. And so, man, I remember that so clearly. And there was something about what he said or how he said it that I believed him. And we got right to work on the steps. I remember we were at a picnic table at this treatment center, and we went there for a meeting, but we did steps 1, 2, and 3 right then and there. At the table we got on our knees and we prayed, and I felt something. There was a spark of hope. And, I just continued to take the suggestions that were given to me by my sponsor. And the thing that was different was I took the suggestions without debate. Because it was always, yeah, but, or I'll do this, but not that. Or I don't have time, or, I had every excuse in the book to not follow through. And, the results that I got early on, just from, having him really sit with me and walk me through the doctor's opinion and tell me what the heck was wrong with me, that was really helpful. I heard people say this was a disease. I didn't believe it. I thought, again, being an alcoholic, whatever, I kind of embraced it because it gave me an excuse for my absurd behavior. But once I learned that, I suffer from this 2-part disease, and really the problem centers in my mind. I have a thinking problem, and that once I start drinking, all bets are off. I suffer from this craving, which gives me the absolute inability to moderate the amount I drink or stop altogether once I start, when I either need to or want to. And I'm really grateful that he walked me through this stuff. We read it together word for word, which was helpful for me. And then he said, I don't know if this is you or not. What's important is whether or not you understand if this is you. Like, this is a solution I found to my problem. But I'm not pushing this on you, dude. This is about you and your experience. You decide for yourself. Does this happen to you when you drink? And so I could look over my life and see numerous examples of times when I took it too far and I didn't want to. And, it was just clear to me that I'm an alcoholic. I suffer from this. It's a spiritual malady that we started talking about that, getting into what the solution is and how the steps work. And I didn't come here for all that. I didn't at that time, I didn't really know if there was a God or not. Like, I didn't really say there wasn't a God, but I just figured if there was, why would he want to help me? I felt like I'd made a lot of really bad decisions, and I didn't feel worthy of going to a higher power and asking for help. And I didn't feel worthy of much of anything, really. I had really, really poor self-image and self-esteem. And I think it's just a result of making so many bad decisions, one after the other, and it just snowballs and compounds. And all of a sudden you look up and it's like, wow, how did all this happen? But, getting to a point where I was willing to talk about a God of my understanding, and praying for willingness to believe in something. It was huge for me because I didn't have to pretend. I had a lot of questions, and to be honest, I was on the fence about all of this. Even though my life sucked before I got here and I started getting some relief once I stayed a while, I was still skeptical. I still just didn't understand how this God concept could all of a sudden solve my work problems and my relationship problems and give me a whole new way to live that was going to be meaningful, and I could live with peace and purpose. And I just thought not drinking was the answer. And then there was all this other stuff on top of it, and I just, I'm just grateful that we just kind of took it one step at a time. And I just continued showing up and did what was suggested of me and was willing, and things started getting better. And ever since I've been sober, things just keep getting better. I never really set out for being a family man and kids, and I didn't think all that stuff was for me. That was never really my plan. But since I got here and really started to work on myself and work the steps and get sober, some really amazing things have happened. And I've had a spiritual experience as a result of all of this. The 12 step says that, we have a spiritual awakening as the result of the steps. And it took a lot of little things for me to get to that point where I could look at the big picture and be like, wow, okay, there really is something to this. And I could see it in you before I could see it in me. But seeing it in you gave me a lot of hope. Because I could see the progress that people were making and really getting traction and, getting their kids back and getting a job. And I remember when I got my driver's license, just what a big deal it was and how everybody rallied around me and helped me celebrate that. And just how meaningful that was. So, the life that I have now, I'm still plugged into recovery. I'm so grateful for Alcoholics Anonymous and the people in the program that never gave up on me. It's a real joy and a privilege to be a part of this program. And all the other pieces have kind of come together. I was so afraid of everything. I didn't realize how much fear dominated my life before I got here. And even once I was here for a while, I just had this overwhelming fear and anxiety about life in general. And all I really wanted was relief from that. And that's one of the things I got from drinking, was I would give me that. It says that I drink for effect. That sense of ease and comfort that comes at once by taking a few drinks. And so I remember my sponsor telling me, if you don't find something in sobriety that gives you that same sense of ease and comfort, you need to go back and look for it in the bottle. And he was right. I remember being sober a couple of years, and things were going good as far as employment, and I had a relationship going, and I didn't end up going to prison, and things were just kind of coming together, but I was still miserable. I didn't have freedom from the fear. And I realized that I was missing something with a God of my understanding and a higher power. Because that's what I kept hearing people talk about. And that was their answer, and where they were finding relief. And so I really decided to dig deep and search for a God of my understanding that could help me with my fear and anxiety. And, it worked. It worked, just like the other parts of the program worked. And, I went back through the steps, and, it says that more will be revealed, right? And that's been my experience. There were some things early on that happened to me that I really wasn't willing to deal with. I didn't really see what was the point, what was the use of dealing with some of the stuff now. And so I went back to it because the pain was, a motivator. Pain and sobriety. And I knew that it was probably just a matter of time before I started drinking if I didn't do something. So anyway, went back through, did the work, got relief, and I felt free. And so it's an amazing experience to feel free. And in the beginning, it was like free to, earn a living, and free to maybe come and go places I want to go, and do things I want to do, and be around the people I want to be around. And that was all good. But I've since learned and experienced that there's a different kind of freedom that is even more liberating. And for me, that freedom is freedom from my character defects. And, the 12 and 12 talks about step 6 in dealing with defects, and how it really separates. In there it says the men from the boys, but for me, and some of the guys I hang with, it separates the guys from, that are okay with just not drinking, and those that really want to be free from their past, be free from their present, and walk a free man, and really continue this quest of personal development in dealing with defects of character. And a big part of all of my defects have to do with my thinking. It goes back to the beginning of, having this 2-part disease and the problem centering in my mind. So it's really helpful for me to be around people that do this deal, that understand that that's the problem, and can help me see that there's another way. Because even now, I work a program and have been sober a while, but a lot of times now in different situations, the first thought I have is like the throwaway, what I shouldn't do. I still have, I'm impulsive, and I can still make bad decisions. And so having accountability partners, a sponsor, but I have a group of guys that we're all in this thing together. And we love each other enough to call each other on our crap, right? And it's so nice to have people that care that much and that are after the same thing. Carrying this message to the addict or the alcoholic that still suffers. Trying to be present in our lives. You know, a lot of us are fathers and business owners, and, you know, a lot of the gifts I've been given in this program, I've learned how to navigate through all parts of life from this program. And I always feel like I never want to sell this program short, or the results that I've gotten from coming to Alcoholics Anonymous and working the steps and doing the deal. Because it's so life-changing, and so I'm just so grateful for the life that I have today. And it's nothing that I ever really set out for. It's just kind of a byproduct of all of the things that I've done. And really it goes back to digging deep and seeking this relationship with the God of my understanding. And, you know, I don't always share a reading. We have readings that we circulate in the men that I hang out with in Phoenix. And the one that came out today, it was a really good reading. And so I wanted to maybe just share part of it with you, because it really says it better than I can. But the reading is out of the book As Bill Sees It. It's from page 109. And it says, "Freedom came to me only with my acceptance that I could turn my will and my life over to the care of my higher power, whom I call God. Serenity seeped into the chaos of my life when I accepted that what I was going through was life, and that God would help me through my difficulties, and much more as well. Since then, He has helped me through all my difficulties. When I accept situations as they are, not as I wish them to be, then I can begin to grow and have serenity and peace of mind." And so the part about God helping me through all of my difficulties, that was that part I wasn't sure how it was all going to work. Like, most of the people I know in recovery, we get sober and then we got to deal with it. It's like, you know, a train's coming at 100 miles an hour. I'm getting drunk, and then all of a sudden screeching halt, and there's all this wreckage. And it's not like I get sober and everything's great. It's hard. You know, it's hard to mend the relationships, is really what it boiled down to for me. My family, I put them through the ringer. And in the beginning, there wasn't anything they wouldn't do to try and help me. But my mother got help in Al-Anon, which really helped me because she quit enabling me, and I'm really grateful to that program now. But, I think about all of the things that drinking brought into my life. I think I've been locked up in every town I've ever lived in, and been just so manipulative, and stole from the people I love the most, and acted out with violence, and just the gamut, right? Just really a terrible existence while I was drinking towards the end, when it really was out of control. And to think that I can just give up drinking, which, it's easy for me to say that now, but back then, I couldn't imagine giving up drinking. Like all the people I'd pushed away, right? I traded everything that really meant anything to me in my life at that time for alcohol. It was really like the only thing left. And now I was looking at having to give that up too. And what I didn't realize at the time was all I had to do was let go of that. Get the help that's offered, this gift. And all of that other stuff that meant so much to me would come back. And there was one time that I stayed sober a year. It was in that 12-year period of in and out. And things started coming back in my life, the relationships, job, all that stuff. And I started drinking again. And it was clear to me, it was like, I was almost like outside of myself, seeing this choice I had made to take back. First I tried to take back my will, but to choose to drink, even though I'm powerless over this, there wasn't, much of a choice, but I did choose to quit work in a program. But when I did that, I could see this clear, like it's almost like pushing all my chips in again, of all of this good stuff that was going on in my life, to embrace something that made me miserable. And that's what drinking was for me at the end. It was miserable. There was no fun left in it at all. None. Even the relief that I used to get in the beginning was pretty much gone. It was just like getting level. Drink to get level or to numb out. So, trading all that in, my sponsor, I'm so grateful to him. He talks to me a lot about the insanity. And not just the insanity of, expecting a different result if I continue the same behavior, but even now in sobriety, he talks to me about the insanity of continuing to do things for which I receive no benefit. A lot of it has to do with my relationship. Sometimes I have alcoholic thinking sometimes, and I say things that I don't mean, or things that don't need to be said. They don't add anything to the conversation, and they are hurtful. And I can see how this manifests itself in so many different ways. And that's why I continue to show up, and I'm continue to remain willing to do the work, because there's other areas of my life that I can grow. And I feel like it's something that I can do to help kind of make up. When I made my amends, there was these group of people that said, we're just glad you're doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. And at that time, I was growing spiritually. And so I made a commitment to them at that time that I would keep doing what I'm doing. And I've let up on that at times. Rested on my laurels, right? It says, I'm in trouble if I do. And that's been my experience. I let up. I'm good. I don't need a meeting. I don't need a new guy. There's so many examples of, how I can rationalize and justify that I'm good now. I don't feel like I'm going to get drunk. Therefore, I don't need to continue to show up for you and show up for me. And so I'm here tonight to say that I am going to continue to do what I told them I would do, which is to continue to grow spiritually. And what does that look like for me? It's changed a lot. I don't want to lose sight of what it is to be in here with a week or a month, because that is so important. And if you're new, I hope you stay and you give yourself this gift, and that you can see for yourself how real it is and how much there is to be gained here. But maybe you're like I was, maybe about 10 years, 12 years. I've gone through it a couple of different times where I'm here, but I'm not really here. I'm not really working the 12th step. I feel like maybe I've outgrown some of the things here, that some of the gifts I've been given. Maybe I need to focus a little more on business, or maybe I'm going to take the wheel back, right, in the bus. And it's a slippery slope. Like, for me, it's not about not drinking anymore. Although that's important, right? If I drink, all bets are off. But I just want to be a better person. Like, how do I show up for this program in a way that people showed up for me, even though they had time and they were enthusiastic and they gave me a hug and they said, keep coming back, and they spent time with me one-on-one, reading the book. They picked me up at meetings. I need to not forget that. Because if had they not done that, I probably wouldn't be here. And so I say that as a reminder for myself that there's work to do in this program. And, for the most part, I'm able to do it with joy. There's sometimes I'm like, but I have to remind myself that this is a life and death thing for us. And I know, you stick around for a long time and you see the faces and the revolving door and the people that never come back and the funerals and I think of the front row when you're at a funeral, and it's mother, family, kids, whatever, and just the devastation and the heartbreak, and knowing that there's another way. And knowing these guys, worked with them, broke bread with them, went on a retreat, convention, all was well. They had it. And then all of a sudden, the front row. And it's that feeling when I see that never leaves me. And it motivates me. And so, if your new stay, if you don't feel free, there's a way to get free from this process. The best thing that I think this has done for me, aside from being okay in my own skin and feeling like everything's going to be okay, I have this fundamental feeling and belief that no matter what, everything's going to be okay. And that's such a relief. But I have this relationship with the God of my understanding now, that I don't really understand, but I do believe that He wants the best for me. And I can see how He's guided me through choppy waters early on in recovery, and even, since I've gotten sober. He's always been there. And the more I seek Him, the better my life gets. And for me, it is the answer. I've chased a lot of things in recovery, trying to make up for lost time. Business and shiny object syndrome, being distracted easily. And I've never gotten the satisfaction or relief from that stuff that I've gotten from seeking a God of my understanding, a relationship with that God. And what that looks like for me today, it's getting up early, it's prayer, it's meditation, I journal, I yoga, I exercise, it's turned into a lot. But the way it makes me feel makes me want to do more. And so that's why I step up my game, because of that commitment to continue to grow. And so I'm glad that, one time I had a guy sit me down and he said, well, my experience is there's different levels of sobriety and recovery, and you can decide what level you want. You want ground beef sobriety? You want chicken sobriety? Or you want filet mignon? The choice is yours. And so, anyway, very grateful to be here. Thanks to my cousin Steve. You mean a lot to me, brother. I love you, man. I'll pass. Thank you.